Hi guys, my name is Crystal Bianca and welcome to my channel. I recently picked up Stephen King's memoir, On Writing, to help me write my first book. I found it so helpful that I've decided to do another video on this book. Last time I shared with you his advice for writers, but today I'm going to share with you some of his writing tips. Let's jump straight into it. So his first writing tip for writers is that backstory is essential. When you start your story, it's really important to let the reader know the main character's past. This helps the readers understand the characters more, as well as the decisions that they make throughout the book. Stephen advises to try and get that backstory in as soon as you can, but try not to bombard the reader with information. If you give them too much information, it might just be way too much for them to try and digest. Instead, try and integrate it slowly into your story with some technique. The next writing tip from Stephen King is to build your toolbox. When he talks about your toolbox, he's talking about building your writing knowledge as well as your skill set. The bigger your toolbox, the easier it is going to be for you to complete a difficult piece of writing. In saying this, he also advises to write to the best of your ability. This means don't use long, fancy words just for the sake of using them. Instead, use the knowledge of writing that you already have. This leads on to his next writing tip, which is to write simple. Simple words work magic when used well. Don't be ashamed to use simple words, especially when you're writing dialogue between people. Some people like to dress up their writing with adverbs like Andrew smiled shyly, when the shyly just isn't needed. Don't be afraid to use the words he said and she said. They may sound like simple words, but they really get the point across. If you use the right words, the reader is going to understand what point you're trying to get across. When you dress up your words, it's another way of telling your reader that you're an unconfident writer. This leads me on to my next point. Trust your vocabulary. When you use your vocabulary, the first word that comes to mind is usually the best word to use. It doesn't matter if the word doesn't seem appropriate or smart, you need to be able to trust your own vocabulary and your own writing style. If you do get stuck on a word and you decide to change it, the new word is probably not going to be as good as the original word or convey the same point. His next bit of writing advice is to use the noun-verb construction. If you're really struggling to put sentences together, this is a really good technique to use. It's really simple to use. All you need is a noun and a verb. You only need two words to form a coherent sentence. For example, Alex swims, snow falls, children dance. It's as simple as that. Sometimes these noun verbs can work wonders and change up the flow of your writing. It also helps when you're trying to put sentences together and you're struggling to write. His next bit of writing advice is to avoid passive verbs. When we talk about verbs, there is both active and passive verbs. An active verb is when the subject is doing something. For example, I read the novel in 24 hours. While a passive verb is when a subject describes something that's already been done. The same sentence would be written as, the novel was read by me in 24 hours. Can you hear the difference between the two sentences? I read the novel in 24 hours and the novel was read by me in 24 hours. It makes a big difference using active verbs, and it completely changes the sound of your work. His next piece of writing advice is to limit the use of adverbs. Adverbs are the words that we use to change adjectives and verbs. Most adverbs are easy to spot and end with the letters ly, so ly. For example, she picked up the pot gently. In this sentence, gently is an adverb. Another example is, she clapped her hands enthusiastically. Now don't stop using them all together. Using them now and then can really add a nice touch to your writing. But when you use too much of them, Stephen likes to describe them as a weed. They turn up all over the place and they reduce the quality of your writing. When we use too many adverbs, your writing comes across as unconfident. They're saying to the reader, I need to add this so you understand me. When sometimes a simpler word just could have done the job. This leaves me to my last writing tip that I learned from Stephen King, and that's to don't overwrite. When you write, it's really important to imagine yourself as the reader. Would you get bored with all of these extravagant details? When you describe a setting with too much detail, you're going to leave the reader bored. When you give away too much detail, it takes away the reader's ability to fill in the gaps with their own imagination. I think what's so good about reading is that we can read the same words, but then we can interpret the writing differently. When you bog down the reader with details, you're taking away that magic of reading, as well as diverting away from the main point of writing, which is to tell a story. You need to find that balance between detail and story when you're writing. These are some of the writing tips that I learnt from Stephen King's memoir on writing. If any of you have read this book or made some of these writing mistakes, comment down below. I'd like to hear from you. And for more writing tips and writing videos, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.